Hello and welcome to episode 81 of This Week in Germany. As always, we'll be bringing the world to Germany and Germany to the world with news for the week beginning the 20th of July 2015. My name's Daniel.
And my name's Rob. Each week we feature stories from the news, society, and culture of the English language. If you want to find out more, including ways to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, head over to our website, thisweekingermany.de.
Okay, let's get started with episode number 81. But first, I want to start with a bit of news, some personal news. Some
really news on our German news podcast?
Yes, but not news, other news. Basically, from Monday, I start a new job, which is going to be business anchor at DW, which is Germany's international news channel.
Oh, we now have a famous television broadcaster on our podcast every week. Every week.
Very, very good. You can send your requests for autographs to our Twitter feed. No, but really, if you want to check me out presenting all the business news that your eyes and ears can handle, then go to dw.com. And you'll be able to see me presenting the business news all next week from midnight Berlin time, 7 p.m. New York time, and 9 a.m. Sydney time. So check that out. See if I make any mistakes.
That is really cool news. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see you on television. Yes,
and I'm going to enjoy it very much as well. So what is coming up on today's episode?
Well, today's episode, you have a special guest coming on to talk about what's going on with Greece talks and the debt payment.
Yes, and there's been some progress from Germany's side in terms of what's happening with Greece, so we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. And Rob, you have all of our news in brief, as usual.
Yes, one of the big ones is a story about the Chancellor Angela Merkel and when she was talking to some children at a school and kind of had a cold-hearted remark that not every single Palestinian refugee can be taken into Germany. And so we'll tell you the whole story about that. We also have a bunch of other things.
Well, 1 second. In the end, she made a refugee girl cry. That's the key thing about that. I mean, it was an awkward moment, but one which took the internet by storm as soon as it happened. Merkel awkwardly tried to comfort her. So, we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about some other refugee issues, such as Google pulling maps of German refugee homes, as well as there's a story about translators being intimidating to refugees that need help with the translation of languages.
Okay, our story 2 features the accountant of Auschwitz, basically someone who's now an old man, but when he was young, he basically took stock of all of the luggage that came off the trains as people were brought to Auschwitz to be murdered. And so this week he was sentenced for as an accessory to murder, and so we'll talk about that a little bit later. And we also have a destination as usual. Where is it this week, Rob?
We're going to the Glyptotek museum with all the ancient statues from ancient Greece, and that is in Munich.
And we also have all of the usual other stuff as well. That's all coming up in this episode of This Week in Germany.
So let's get started with story 1.
If you haven't caught the last couple of episodes from us, then you might not know about Germany's involvement in the Greek debt crisis. Well, this week, Germany's parliament, the Bundestag, held an important vote that helped Greece come a step closer to getting a third financial bailout package worth 86 billion euros. Joining us now on the line to talk about the latest in the Greek debt crisis, as well as Germany's role in the new bailout, is Joanna Slater, Berlin correspondent for the Globe and Mail. So, Joanna, on Friday, the German parliament held an important vote. What exactly did they vote on, and why is this significant?
So, on Friday, the Bundestag held a vote to ratify the agreement reached earlier in the week in Brussels, which was effectively a start to negotiations, not an end. It was premised on a series of reforms that the Greek government agreed to undertake and pass through its parliament earlier in the week. So this was basically Germany saying that it was willing to go forward and start new negotiations for a third bailout package for Greece. It was it was a little controversial, particularly within Chancellor Merkel's own party. She had a fair number of rebels who didn't want to do it, but it did pass by a healthy margin. And so what this means is that effectively there is a new mandate for trying to seek a new package that will put Greece on some kind of sounder footing. Whether it will actually do that remains to be seen.
But there are a lot of European countries involved in the debate over how to go forward with Greece. So why do people look towards Germany and specifically Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble as kind of a barometer of Greece's place in the euro?
I think it firstly has to do with Germany's place in the Eurozone and in the European Union. Germany is the de facto leader of the bloc. It's the strongest economy and the largest economy. And Minister Schäuble in particular has a long history of advocating for European affairs, a long history of leadership on the European stage. He has been an absolutely indispensable figure for Germany in these talks. He is more or less, not officially, but almost the head of the Eurogroup, which is the gathering of European Eurozone finance ministers. Yanis Varoufakis, the former Greek finance minister, described the Eurogroup as a well-tuned orchestra, and Minister Schäuble being the director who keeps everyone in tune.
I see. Now, he came up with a plan, which some people saw as a little bit sneaky as the negotiations were still going on. He said that he had an idea for a Greek time-out rather than a proper Grexit. So what was this idea, and could it still happen?
Well, this idea emerged on Saturday in the heat of these grueling talks, trying to finally reach a solution for Greece. And I would say it was an explosive element in the negotiations. It came in the form of a paper, a proposal from the German Finance Ministry, which basically said if Greece was unwilling to enact the reforms demanded by its creditors, then its other option was to take a 5-year or more timeout from the Eurozone, during which it would repair its finances and then perhaps return. No European government before had ever openly suggested that such a thing was possible, legal, or desirable. So this had a really important impact on the negotiations. It allowed Germany more or less to make a credible threat to Greece that its other option, if it didn't submit to the demands, was to exit, at least temporarily. Whether that could still happen is a very open question. Finance Minister Schäuble has said earlier this week that many people in the German government still think it might be the better option. If these talks break down, if the crisis reemerges down the road, if Greece seems to not be pulling its end of the bargain, it's possible this option will be retabled, and it's possible it could happen.
So you don't think it was a political empty threat to try and bring Greece to the brink and therefore make them focus their thoughts on trying to come up with a deal?
I definitely think it was a negotiating tactic, for sure. I agree with you. And I think that it worked rather well as a negotiating tactic. And I do believe that Chancellor Merkel would be very reluctant to see such a thing happen, and many other European leaders would also be very reluctant to see it happen. Many other leaders criticized Minister Schäuble's suggestion right away. But I don't really think it's an empty threat. I think that at a certain point, if the situation deteriorated, then I believe Germany would potentially be willing to go through with that. Now, a lot of things would have to happen before it, but I'm not sure it's an empty threat.
Because Germany carries such weight in the Eurozone, is it fair to say that they are forcing their monetary philosophy on the rest of Europe?
That's an excellent question. I think there is, to a certain extent, there is some of that happening. There is a kind of the Eurozone looks a little more dramatic than it used to in terms of policy orientation. This emphasis on an austerity approach to fiscal spending, on following the rules, on certain kinds of structural reforms. Those are all things that Germany either did or wants to do, but certainly things that Germany embraces. On the other hand, I think it's important not to exaggerate. Germany doesn't win every battle when it comes to Eurozone policy, and certainly when it comes to monetary policy, there were things that Germany was not very keen on, like the start of quantitative easing, which the European Central Bank began in any case. So Germany doesn't win every battle, but I think in the broader direction, Germany appears to be calling the shots.
Joanna Slater, Berlin correspondent for The Globe and Mail. Thank you very much for helping us untangle this very complex subject.
Thank you for having me.
And now for this week's News in Brief. This past Wednesday, the public broadcasting station, NDR, filmed German Chancellor Angela Merkel speaking with high school students from the city of Rostock. Many liked the fact that the Chancellor will take time to speak with today's youth, but many were upset with the specific response that Merkel gave one of the students whose family are Palestine refugees. The girl asked the Chancellor what was about to become of her family who were in the process of being deported back to Lebanon. She wanted to stay, but Merkel said that Germany was here to help, but they can't take or keep everybody. At this point, the girl began to cry, and the Chancellor's response at consoling the teen was said to be very awkward. Since going viral, there are those that were saying the Chancellor's response was cold and uncaring towards the feelings of the teenager. Stern magazine even used the title for an article of the situation, calling Merkel the Ice Queen. Many, though, have defended Merkel's actions, including the Palestinian girl herself, who said she was fine with Merkel's opinions, and she was glad that she was in the position to listen to her. Just before this past weekend, search engine company Google decided to delete a map from their servers that someone created that gave the location of many refugee homes and planned shelters across the nation. Activist groups were concerned that this map was being used as a tool for hatred and violence in Germany against refugees and thought that it should be removed. Google agreed. The search engine company said that freedom of speech and freedom of information was very important, but if content was illegal and against the law, then it would be removed. Organizations against right-wing extremists were very happy with Google's decision, and all those it helped get the results. Slightly different to Angela Merkel's response earlier about Germany's hosting of refugees, the Interior Minister, Thomas de Maizière, said that the country was able to deal with the growing stream of refugees and that overburdening was not a problem. He said that Germany was a wealthy country, and compared to other countries taking in refugees, that Germany was not overburdened in comparison, but that it still faced challenges. A solution he is proposing is to reduce the number of those applying for refugee status by only letting those in crisis areas apply. He has suggested that the Balkan countries be categorized as safe countries of origin, as most people applying for asylum there are not considered politically persecuted. There's a small country in Africa called Eritrea. It's on the east coast, and its bigger neighbors are Sudan and Ethiopia. When asylum seekers from this country come to Germany, many times they need help with the paperwork, being as it's all in German. Germany supplies translators to translate from a refugee's language into German. But it's coming to light that some of the translations were not correct for the people coming from Eritrea. Important details have said to be omitted, or even deliberate misdirection was reported. A private organization is looking to help those coming from Eritrea, and they are now offering to retranslate transcripts for asylum hearings. They are also speculating that the reason for these errors can either be said that the translators are still loyal to Eritrea's repressive regime, or that they're being paid for their sabotage. It makes a difficult position for Germany to try and monitor translators to make sure they're doing their jobs according to the law. A new law is being discussed now in Germany in the way major art can be bought and sold in the country. A plan is being made to look over all artwork valued at 150,000 euros, or if the artwork is over 50 years old. If it meets both, or possibly either of these two requirements, then the country could stop the sale and movement of the art. The reason for this law is to combat illegal trade of antiques, as well as keeping artworks inside the country that are deemed national treasures. One of Germany's renowned artists, Georg Basenitz, is opposed to this law, and he thinks that it will make things difficult for art collectors, as well as gallery owners, and even museums. In protest, he and famous German artists have started pulling some of their work from the country's most prestigious art galleries, like the Dresden Albertinum and the Leipzig Museum of Fine Arts.
And thank you very much, Rob, for your news in brief. Moving on to story 2. The so-called accountant of Auschwitz was sentenced this week. The 94-year-old man, Oskar Gröning, was found guilty of being an accessory to murder, specifically of 300,000 Hungarian Jews at Nazi Germany's most notorious death camp. While the court accepted that he did not personally kill anyone, he did help to ensure the smooth running of a system designed to murder as many people as possible. He collected and catalogued the belongings of those who arrived at the concentration camp. The judge told Gröning he had a safe desk job that gave you certain protection in a machinery designed entirely for the killing of humans. Gröning was given a 4-year sentence, which he will not serve due to his advanced age. Still, some of the survivors who attended the trial stated the importance was in justice being served and guilt recognized, not in imprisonment. One of those at the trial was Leon Schwarzbaum, who lost 30 members of his family to the Holocaust. He was quoted by The Guardian as saying, "I feel satisfied that justice has finally been served. Whether he goes to prison or not is not really relevant. I'm the same age as him, and seeing him in court just reminded me of being in Auschwitz as a 22-year-old and being amazed to see Nazis the same age as me shooting Jews." Gröning is one of only 6,600 to be convicted of war crimes committed during the Nazi era, out of a total of 172,000 investigated since the end of the war. In fact, he may also be the last one. Other suspected Nazi criminals are also in advanced age and may not be fit to stand trial.
And that wraps up our second story, so moving on.
Yes, it's now time for your favorite feature and my second favorite feature.
And everybody's favorite feature, Destination Germany, where each week we take you on a journey somewhere in the country that is well worth a visit. Whether you're a tourist or a permanent resident, foreigner, or a German citizen, we'll be covering the famous sites as well as those little-known corners of Deutschland to get you really excited about coming and visiting and learning about new places in the country. So, all that matters is that we will show you that Germany is wonderful. If you
and if you want to check out the photos, then you go to our website, which is
thisweekingermany.de. Is it still that?
.de, yes.
Okay.
It still is. It still is. Yes. Not changed in all of these 81 episodes. 81. Wow.
It's a lot of episodes.
This show is old.
That's 81 Destination Germanys.
That is a lot.
And there's a lot more to come as well. So we've already covered 81 interesting places, and there'll be another 81, and then there'll be more after that.
And we haven't repeated any yet, so that's pretty cool. Okay, well, speaking of lots of destinations, on the show last week, we were all reminded once again just how truly amazing you can find lots of stuff here in Germany, and they're all recognized worldwide, because the UNESCO World Heritage Committee just listed another site here, the Speicherstadt in Hamburg. This is an old warehouse district, right on the River Elbe, with an impressive dark red brick Gothic buildings lining the water. So, many are still in use today, and they hold vast quantities of goods to be shipped around Europe and the world, but now they have also given people more reason to check it out as well. The district has been fitted with a number of museums, shops and cafes for everyone to enjoy while taking in the ambiance and history of such a great district. So, I know you like moving all around through the country for your destinations that you bring us to each week, so let me guess, as we were pretty far north in Hamburg, are we going to be doing a southern spot in this episode?
You know me too well. You called it. This week we're jumping from our wonderful German public transportation, and we're going all the way down south back to the city of Munich. So that means we're going to the very, very center of the city of this huge Bavarian metropolis. Today I want to tell you about another museum, and before you say, oh, another museum, great. No, but this museum is...
Oh, another museum. Great.
No, but this museum is spectacular. It's a grand museum, and it is the oldest museum in Munich, and from what I've researched, it is the only museum in the world that solely is dedicated to ancient sculpture.
Okay, I dare you to try and pronounce the name of this place.
It is the Glyptotek. I'm pretty sure, and it has a pretty cool origin too. The Glyptotek, and do you want to know why it's called the Glyptotek?
No.
Well, I'm going to tell you anyways. It comes from two old Greek words. They took the word glyphine, which means to sculpture, and they took the word teka, which means a repository, and put them together. And so even using ancient Greek words, the Germans are using logic to make compound nouns to describe things. So it is the place to store sculptures.
Yes. Very, very interesting. I like it. So when I think of old Greek sculptures, I think white marble, busts of emperors and this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what you'll find here. In forms of sculpture, mosaics, and reliefs, you'll find hundreds of full body, half body, and busts that were made as early as 700 BC, and then coming around to the Roman period around 500 AD. And this artwork of the human form spans close to a century.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So while I do love a good museum, as you know, there's just something about sculptures showing the human form, and especially the ones that are really lifelike and accurate, proportionally accurate. And it's just, I don't know, I find it so fascinating, so amazing to see how you can create something which looks so, I don't know, soft and fragile and lifelike out of what was a big stone.
Yeah, and as I was saying earlier, this museum is really old. That from everything, the art on display to the building itself. It was built in the early 1800s, and the front of it looks like what you would expect when you think of a Greek temple. It's a white building with these huge columns and an exquisite triangle-shaped relief above it. There are classic marble floors, arched and vault ceilings. The inside kind of gives you the feeling that you're in an old Roman bath. All in all, it's a beautiful building which houses even more beautiful art.
So I have to ask, if the building and the sculptures it holds are so old and so valuable, how did it fare during the Second World War when so many museums and art pieces were destroyed or the art went missing?
When it looked like there was even the slightest possibility of danger to the museum and the art, the sculptures were removed and then stored in the safer monasteries around the area that were protected at all times. The building itself wasn't so lucky. It was hit pretty hard by bombs in the summer of 1944, and the roof was pretty much completely gone. And after that, the interior didn't hold up very well when it was exposed to the elements, so not so great for the building.
It seems they managed to salvage and rebuild it, right?
Yeah, they did. They were even able to use some of the original materials, though it's not quite the same as it was, and many argue, though, that it is even better now. Before, most of the rooms, they wanted to make it the rooms look open and large, so they had the statues against the wall. But now the statues are freestanding in the middle of the room, so it feels like you're kind of like walking through a crowd of people rather than just admiring some art that is stuck on a wall.
So you told us a little bit about the types of statues that we're going to find here, but I don't think one of your museum destinations would be complete without telling us the sort of special exhibitions that they have.
Again, you know me too well. Of course they have special exhibitions. From earlier this year until coming up to November 8th, if you visit the museum, you can check out a wooden miniature replica. They have models of all the old Roman forums, which were the political as well as the geographic center of the city of Rome. If you visited Rome, the city itself, you could still see all these ruins of the once magnificent city that it was. But here at the Glyptotek in Munich, you can see what they actually looked like when they were whole.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Rob, for telling us all about the Glyptotek, located directly in the city centre of Munich, with all of those lovely ancient Greek statues. And if you'd like to see what this place looks like from the comfort of your own home or mobile, wherever you are, just go to our website, thisweekingermany.de, where we have photos of each week's destination. Next up, our German of the Week section, where we put the spotlight on a prominent person from this week's news, a German citizen or even a foreigner who we deem an honorary German, who's had an effect, for better or worse, on German culture, society, or politics.
In this episode, we actually have a German again as our featured German of the Week. His name is Flula Borg, and right now he's a YouTube sensation for his entertaining and witty videos. He has racked up over 600,000 YouTube subscribers and over 65,000 Twitter followers.
I like to say boom before I start to speak with people.
What?
Boom! Hey guys, it's Flula Borg. How are you?
Now, I've been interested in him for a little while, and I can say that what he's really famous for is his comedic style, using an extreme German accent while speaking the English language. He was born in Germany, in the state of Bavaria, but has since moved to Los Angeles, California in the United States. He started out his entertainment career as a DJ, but is now much known for his comedy acting on YouTube, and he's starting to get into television and film. He was recently cast as one of the stars for a U.S. television show called Cuckoo, where he played the character Cuckoo, a crazy European married to an American while studying abroad, and now they were returning to the USA for some hilarious misadventures and cultural misunderstandings. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like the show is going to get past the pilot episode. Borg has also become more famous recently when he did the film Pitch Perfect 2 as a leader of a rap group that came out a couple months ago. Most of his fans are from the US or Canada right now, but he's becoming more widely known every day. And if you want more Flula Borg, you can find him on YouTube as DJ Flula. Here's a closing clip.
Do you know sometimes in the life when a person doesn't speak to you, but they speak to you with fibs and lies, and they say these things so that perhaps you look like a dumb face, yeah? Yeah, like what? Then you may ask this person, verarschst du mich? Verarschst du mich? Verarschst du mich? This is meaning, are you assing me?
And with our German of the Week section done, that brings us to the end of episode 81. So thank you very much for listening, and it's been a pleasure to have you listening to the program this week, as it is every week. I'm rambling now, so maybe we can move on to Rob, who will tell us what you can find on our website, thisweekingermany.de.
Well, besides all the great content that we have there, you can also find our social media links like Facebook, Twitter, and all those other social media things. And you can find ways to support us, which we always appreciate. We want to give a big thanks to Globe and Mail journalist Joanna Slater for joining us on the week's program. You can find more of her work on theglobeandmail.com or Twitter at jslaternyc.
Yes, that's right. Don't forget, if you want to see me doing the business news, being the business news anchor on DW, just head over to dw.com and you can watch it live there from midnight Germany time or 7 p.m. New York time. So, yes, that's all for this week. This Week in Germany is produced by me, Daniel Winter. It is written and presented by myself and Rob Bishop. Thank you for listening. We'll be back in 7 days with more of This Week in Germany.